roll call, please. Babcock? Here. Chapman?
Here.
Eckert?
Here.
Gurian?
Here.
Kahn?
Here.
Morrison? Here. Seifert?
Here.
Our Pledge of Allegiance tonight is going to be led by some Winston Campus Elementary students, and I'd like to ask the principal, Mr. Andy Tiemann, to come up and introduce his students.
President Babcock, Dr. Thompson, esteemed Board of Education members, thank you for inviting Winston Campus Elementary to lead you tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance. This summer, I was notified that Winston had earned the PBS Platinum recognition through the Midwest PBS network of schools. This is the highest level that's offered by the PBS network, and we're really proud of this award. Fact is that 10 schools total in District 15 also earned this award. It's pretty awesome. 41 total schools in the state of Illinois earned this, but 10 came from our district, so that's just quite an accomplishment. So every year we give our students an award. 45 students this year were recognized for the PBS award at Winston Campus Elementary. So I'm going to turn it over to Paolo Arboleta, our assistant principal, to tell you a little bit about our award.
Sandy. Students who receive this award follow the Winston core beliefs and positive behavioral interventions and supports, PBIS, expectations at all times. These are students who have not received an office discipline referral. These students show respect for self and others through their actions and values. They show respect for learning by consistently displaying responsible behavior by coming to school on time, being well prepared, always ready for challenges, and eager to learn. These students show respect for the school environment by being classroom leaders who always follow directions. These students display willingness to help others at all times. These students are positive role models for their peers. Last year, 45 students earned this award. Many are in the audience tonight. And at this time, I would like to invite the Winston campus students who earned our PBIS award to come up and lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Come on up.
Ready?
Thank you for coming. The Board of Education has this really neat light-up thing for you. Thank you for coming. Really good work with making PBIS. Congratulations. I've got one more.
As always, as we're conducting business for the school board, it is the mission of District 15 to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community. I'd like to have the call to order the public hearing. May I have the suggested motion for that, please?
Make a motion to open the public hearing on the adoption of the fiscal year 2017 tentative budget.
Second.
Roll call. Babcock? Aye. Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Kahn?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Mr. Demchak, do you have anything for us?
Yes, good evening.
Good
President
evening.
Babcock, members of the board. I presented a budget at the June 15 board meeting for 16-17. I've not made any changes to that budget yet. We still haven't hired all of our instructional staff yet, and we're still looking at our PA allocations, our two big items that we're looking at to finalize on the expenditure side. The good news, however, is that the state has adopted a K-12 budget for 16-17, which will give us more revenue for 16-17 than we had anticipated that we had put into the budget back in June. So that's the good news on it. We're still closing our accounts from 15-16. There will have to be some carryovers from 15-16 into 16-17 just because of timing of projects. So once we finalize and close all that out, then we'll bring all those changes to the board, and we'll make a presentation prior to the board adopting it at our September meeting.
Any questions?
I have one. Mike, given I appreciate the fact the state has awarded us a little bit extra money, but given the fact that their account is so low, do you anticipate delayed payments during the year?
I do, and the reason I say that is because they're still in a cash crunch. They're still spending more statewide on expenditures than they're taking in on revenue. So I do expect a cash crunch. As it affects District 15, because we're about 72 to 75% property taxes, and property taxes have been coming in really, really good this summer, like they have in the past years. I don't anticipate it being a cash flow crunch for the district at all. The only time it came into effect was, I think, back in 2010, when the property tax bills didn't go out till Thanksgiving, and we missed the whole summer tax collection season. We got real close to doing TAWs, tax anticipation warrants back then. But since then, cash has been fine. So do I expect delayed payments? Yes. Do I think it'll affect our budget other than decreasing our interest earnings? No.
Thank you.
Just real quick, Mike, it looks like, the key document that I was looking at just is a summary that you've prepared at the end. And it looks like kind of the final, and I know this is the exact same thing we had looked at earlier that you talked about, but I know that we had an increase, certainly excited me. Sometimes I wonder why this stuff isn't advertised as much, but in 2015 and 16, our fund balance increased significantly. And then I know in this year it's reduced to levels that are still above 2014 and 15, but less than what we had last year. And I guess I could go through and kind of figure out where those numbers are coming, but where do you think I'm just looking at the end fund balance. I mean, to me, that's kind of an important figure because it kind of shows, how safe we are as a district moving forward. And so when we see it going down from 71 to 64, I know that the good thing is it's still a lot higher than it was in 14, 15, but how do you account for that?
Yeah, it's a little misleading for the fact, if you look at 15, 16, we sold the life safety bonds in 15, 16. So we had revenue of $18.5 million in the Health Life Safety Fund, but only spent $2.7 million was the budget to spend.
So it's more of a situation of when the money comes in and when the money goes out.
On that, it's totally timing on the Health Life Safety Fund. So
Okay.
you'll see, so as we look at that fund balance, and that's very perceptive, that's true, it goes up dramatically, and then in 16, 17, it goes down dramatically. But when we take Health Life Safety out of it, it's still going up, though. I mean, that big
By
blip
less
is
than-
gone, but we've built fund balance in this district every year that I've been here since 2010, 11 was the first year here. So it has gone up since 2010, 11.
No, that's good. I think even in the numbers that are showing that even taking out the life safety issue that you discussed.
And even at that, with our strong cash position and our strong fund balance, our financial rating score for the last 2 years has been 3.9 out of 4.0.
That's fantastic.
So we're still in a good, strong fiscal position.
Great.
Any other questions? Okay, we will now open this hearing to comments from members of the public. Is anyone, now, I know that we have some people that wanted to address the board. Are you waiting to, is there anyone that wants to address the board during the hearing regarding just the tentative budget, or are you waiting for the regular meeting? Anyone? Then we're going to move right along. There being no one to come forward to speak on this, may I have the suggested motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn the public hearing on the adoption of the fiscal year 2017 tentative budget.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chapman?
Aye.
Egbert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert.
Aye.
Babcock.
Aye. Okay, we're going to move on then to the superintendent's reports.
First item in my section is a presentation made by two representatives from the Facilities Plan version 2.0 committee. Dave Warder and Matt Tepper are representatives of the group that have created the proposal for you, and they're going to share some information with you tonight about further development of the proposal. These gentlemen have, put in a lot of extra time to assist with this process. They took some tasks away from the committee and helped them to devise a plan for possible boundaries. And Dave has done a lot of work to create a lot of things, and both guys have been helpful, so thank you.
Thank you, members of the board, superintendent, administration. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity again to come in front of you and kind of show our progress, where we've been since April of our last report to you. Just to kind of follow up, the committee is filled with many members of varying people from the community. Jan Taniguchi from STR was involved in some of the earlier meetings, as well as Doug Lim from the construction manager that you guys have, and Scott Craig and a lot of the other district staff have been, very involved and very engaged in the whole process. Just a kind of a quick recap from where we were at from the last April's. Our committee came up with kind of two broad goals of what were identified in the district that could use some assistance or some growth of things. One of them being just to address the educational needs of the students. Obviously, that's one of the most paramount things that the board and the district want to accomplish for the community members. Some of the identified issues that were brought forward were overcrowding, that is, throughout each facility throughout the district. Provide additional classrooms for growth, for future growth of input, or for either new developments or new programs. Also try to open up the district to full-day kindergarten from the half-day kindergarten programs that are in place now, and then also to provide locations for more intensive services for our English language learners and other community members. The second broad goal that was identified at the last presentation was to just improve accessibility and organization of the schools. This kind of included kind of going to a community school type program, more just trying to get school facilities within communities that people could engage in their school and after school activities within their community at a more greater accessibility. One of the biggest things was trying to reduce time on buses. There's a lot of students who are traversing throughout the district to go to schools, and we wanted to try to reduce, the time spent just in transportation. Obviously, trying to reduce funding spent on maintenance of older facilities, and trying to consolidate the money spent on the facilities still in operation. Another large goal was to try to align junior highs currently to the high schools that they're going to, that students will future head to, so that you don't have junior high students that are together and then being split going to different high schools, that they'll kind of engage and be able to develop relationships from one district to the next. And then obviously to provide increased opportunity for students for early education in preschool. If we have, as a district as a whole, have spaces and facilities available for, into the community at early education, even before kindergarten, it kind of helps, the whole process and helps the educational process of the district moving forward. So the original recommendation that we had came forward in kind of broad goals, that was back in April, was to recommend building a K-5 elementary school in the northeast quadrant of Palatine to house approximately 1,200 students. And this would mainly serve that one of the biggest population areas of the district that has no near educational facility. They have to cross, some major roads to get to even the closest one, and the students all up in that area are being broken out into 4 to 5 different facilities for their education. So that was one of the main recommendation, was to get a facility up in that area where a very vast majority of the students are. Also to build a middle school in the southwest portion of the district. This would be on the ELA property that the district already owns. And this would just kind of help, alleviate the junior high level overcrowding and shortage of facilities. And then, the other recommendation is move junior high schools from a 7-8 program to a 6-7-8 program, which aligns more with the curriculum and the programming that the educational staff are trying to align toward, and as well as some of the other districts, throughout the state. Also mentioned was align the junior highs to their future high schools, which kind of just helps aid in the whole social and relationship building aspect of education. And then in this process would make Gray Sanborn a non-needed facility, as it being is the most aged facility and potentially needing the most maintenance and upkeep. So they would just kind of keep moving the district forward and not trying to work through facilities that might not facilitate education in the best level in the 21st century. Dave Warder is going to kind of go through the rest of what we've done since April to kind of help stipulate a little bit more of what this kind of really means for the remaining facilities and how these potentially new schools would impact the district as a whole.
Thanks, Matt. So following the April presentation, we were asked to continue to meet to flesh out the viability as well as more of the detailed plan around what this could and should look like to optimize the facilities, both in existence as well as being proposed to be constructed. When we met at the beginning, we set some guiding principles around what we wanted to hold firm, knowing that change is hard and that people are sort of entrenched in their current situations, and any change is difficult. So we wanted to take a very long-term view to allow for growth and development in areas, not being short-sighted in terms of any area, putting any current school in a position where it was at or near capacity, even with the revised proposal, so that we'd have issues almost immediately upon starting. We also wanted to minimize disruption. So we didn't move boundaries where there was an unnecessary move. We looked at sort of what was needed to live into the guiding principles of aligning elementary schools with middle schools, with the high schools from a logical attrition standpoint, but didn't make any sort of discretionary changes unless they were needed to either absorb capacity or to live into that. We also looked at when we did have to make moves, moving areas together rather than moving individual lines or moving over a street or two here or there to cause unnecessary disruption from that perspective. But one of the foundational ones we did look at was trying to work on that alignment of the elementary to middle to high school, so living within the high school boundaries as they exist within District 211 and District 214. Before I go into sort of each of the high school areas, one thing as I've even started to hear some community feedback on different areas is people are sort of looking at, is this better or worse for me? I think to categorize it either way sort of oversimplifies the complexity of the issue and the complexity of the solution. There are a number of areas that are different, and there's pros and cons in terms of the overall goals that we set that everybody will realize in terms of increased capacity at the schools, reduction in mobile classrooms that exist today, hopefully elimination of mobile classrooms, the expansion to full-day kindergarten, which 90+% of the districts in the state have, things like that that are true to all the schools, as well as a number of benefits from the alignment of schools to the attrition up to middle school and high school. So I'll go through the detail in each of the areas. Much of this is just a mirror of what was included in Dr. Thompson's packet to you. The Palatine High School area, the elementary changes in the north by the creation of that school really facilitates a lot of additional capacity in several of the other elementary schools there. The closing of Sanborn was probably the biggest need to redraw lines in that area to accommodate the current boundaries, as well as there's an area in the northwest portion of the district that goes to Paddock in the Fremd area today, and we want to align that. So in general, we've taken the Lincoln boundaries west and the Winston campus boundaries west based on additional capacity that they will have under the new plan to accommodate much of those existing boundaries. One of the hurdles we did run into from a logistical basis is with the additional capacity on the elementary side created in the north and the alignment of these boundaries, the middle school capacity didn't increase. We had Winston campus and Sunling where we were putting sixth grade in there and aligning the boundaries without adding additional capacity. So the additional change that would be proposed is to repurpose Jane Addams Elementary as a STEM academy to accommodate an additional 450 or so students on a application basis throughout the Palatine High School area to provide that additional middle school capacity. So one of the areas that still needs to be worked out is exactly the boundaries within the current Jane Addams alignment. Based on the capacity created at all the schools, a majority of that would align to Lake Louise, with a smaller portion aligning to Virginia Lake or Winston campus. So those are the exact boundaries within there, still need to be determined. Dr. Thompson's working with the data team to figure out sort of current enrollment and where those lines make the most sense, but the majority of it would align to Lake Louise under the new definitions. Within the Fremd High School area, significantly fewer changes to many of the existing boundaries just because you don't have the additional elementary capacity. The boundaries of Hunting Ridge, Marion Jordan, and Whiteley don't change other than the alignment to the new middle school that would be created. Thomas Jefferson would also align to that middle school, would have some really no difference in the existing boundaries. Some of the current enrollment would change based on keeping students within their high school boundaries. There are no changes to Pleasant Hill whatsoever. Under the creation of the new middle school, what would occur is the alignment of Paddock and Pleasant Hill to Plum Grove as it currently exists. The area here that is most impacted is a significant portion of Central Road's attendance and Willow Bend's attendance is west of 53 in that Fremd High School district that currently goes to the Rolling Meadows elementary schools essentially. The capacity that is created by all the moves creates enough additional capacity at Thomas Jefferson and Paddock to absorb those areas. Dr. Thompson and his staff are working through the data and transportation plans there to figure out the boundaries that make the most sense. So I know there was a map included with lines drawn. Those are still being fleshed out. The numbers are viable. We've worked through that. It's just a matter of exactly where those are drawn to feed into those two schools. It would affect sort of the middle school as well based on the fact that those two go to different middle schools under this alignment. And then the Rolling Meadows area, this is one that is probably the least fleshed out in terms of a full recommendation. With the alignment of the elementary schools to the ultimate high school boundary, basically all the elementary schools, Willow Bend, Kimball Hill, and Central Road, have the capacity to accommodate the student population in there. All of those would align to Sandburg. But the current boundaries, because you've carved out all of the stuff west of 53 to the Fremd district, those boundaries are significantly out of alignment for the capacity. You've left very little in sort of the existing Central Road footprint as an example. So that's one where we almost want to seek community input within that area to determine the most optimal use of the facilities. You could redraw boundaries to align to three elementary schools as they exist. Dr. Thompson has also talked about the potential for almost an academy approach at the elementary school or some sort of unique programs that you could align and use two elementary schools as sort of your core K through 5 population. So there's flexibility within there. The numbers work for total enrollment and the total elementary capacity. It's just how you choose to utilize it from that perspective. So as we look back on this sort of the core goals that Matt hit on at the beginning, the increased capacity by adding the number of seats and classrooms that you get from the addition of the 2 schools and the closing of Sanborn definitely helps to create capacity that's desperately needed throughout the district, would significantly reduce the transportation costs, would meet the vast majority of the goals that we established at the beginning that this proposal hopes to address. The thing I'd ask people to consider as well is the cost of not doing this. You're going to continue to have pressure within the schools, not be able to accommodate programs that you want to add. The mobile classrooms will be pervasive and continue to grow in terms of utilization, things like that are long-term costs, as well as continuing to sink funds into maintaining the oldest facility, which has a significant investment from the life safety fund and other maintenance costs. So that's what we came up with, and Matt or I would be happy to address any questions you have.
It's a lot to digest.
It was a lot to work through.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
I just want to say that that was a great presentation, and it looks like you've done a lot of work since April. And I know that we've been in communication with a lot of people in the public, and they're certainly waiting to hear this level of detail. I know there's going to be more detail, particularly with the Rolling Meadows School. One question I had is, in the facilities committee, are there any people from the Jane Addams area?
Yes. We had representation from across the district. I know we had at least one representative who lives in the Jane Addams community. I won't say every school was represented, but the vast majority of areas were covered.
Okay.
And Dr. Thompson, was that by invitation, or was that you sent out an invitation to the public, correct?
That was the first committee, and then we used some members from the first committee that transitioned to the second version of the committee, and then we invited representation from the entire district and different perspectives. And many of those people are here tonight. Would you please stand if you were a member of that committee?
Say thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So
our plan is to bring even more fine detail to this proposal the committee has come up with, and then we will go out and share it with as many groups as will have us in and invite us in to share the proposal so that they have as much information as possible and have the correct information. We'll also, at that time, receive feedback from people about their thoughts about the plan and if they have any other ideas. So.
Okay.
Gentlemen, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
The next item in my section is really just to talk a little bit about the opening of the 2016-17 school year. Got off to a very smooth start today. Transportation did an excellent job. Principals and staff members were there ready with smiles to greet all the kids. It was fun for all the central office administrators to be at schools and to see the smiles on the kids' faces in their back-to-school outfits. A lot of fun. And I report that all the schools had the construction completed. We're ready to receive kids today. The Winston campus was right under the wire with that parking lot. But the only really outstanding project I think that we do have is the elevator here. We're waiting on some parts that had to be manufactured, and we're aware of that. But it's kind of off to the side. It doesn't disrupt anything that's happening in the school. I did talk to David Morris, who's been in charge of the construction projects this summer. They weren't very glamorous. The work that was being done was life safety work to make sure that the buildings were up to code, improving bathrooms, roofs, heating and ventilation, not very exciting things, new carpets in many of our buildings. But David told me that he anticipates that we're going to come in under budget. Right now, we stand at about $900,000 in contingency fees that we didn't use. So that's good news. So everything was on time and under budget, and he'll give us a final report once all the final bills have come in and the work is finally completed. But that's exciting. We had a terrific new teacher orientation. We had almost 60 new teachers that joined the staff this year. Of about 880 teachers, that's what we have on the rolls. There was a week-long teacher orientation that provided them with all the necessary skills and information they needed to hit the ground running today. Lots of curricular supports, technology supports, and we had a a well-run teacher orientation that I think really prepared our first-year teachers. And I know, Dave, you said your child had a first-year teacher.
She does.
Came home excited, right?
Very excited.
So hats off to Meg and the Department of Instruction for that. Our enrollment stands pretty level from what it was last year. At the end of August last year, we had 11,974 kindergarten through 8th grade students. This year, right now, this count was before school started today, but I'll give you an update. But we are just about 110 students down from the end of August last year. I anticipate that we'll be probably pretty close to what we had last year when all the registrations are completed. Andy Tiemann talked about the honor that his school had achieved this year and the students that he and Pablo recognized tonight because of their positive behavioral interventions and support behavior. And I've asked Tom Edgar, who really has done an excellent job with our PBIS system, along with Laura Swanlin, to just tell you a little bit about PBIS and how significant it is for what we do in the district. So Tom, come on up.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson, members of the board. Hopefully this time I'll be able to do this without a phone. Last time we had a technology glitch. Here we go. Already off to a better start. So as Andy Tiemann mentioned, Winston campus is one of many schools who's had a very successful year in this area of the district. But before I go into the larger district and the success it's had, I want to provide a little bit of context. In the early 2000s, about 15 years ago, there started to become a real interest in researching what made schools effective. Why would one school be more effective than the next? What can account for that? Even schools that have very similar populations, teachers, things like that, there's a lot of variation between schools. Robert Marzano was a leader in this, and in 2003 he published a series of factors that schools controlled that would contribute to the success and effectiveness of that school. Now, on one of these I have it bolded, the safe and orderly school environment. It was listed as 4th in 2003. So of the factors, it was recognized as something very important to have, which of course makes sense. If you're going to have effective teaching and effective learning, you can't have it regularly disrupted, or you can't have people feel unsafe while that's occurring. So fast forward about 15 years later, Marzano has continued to publish the summaries of it, and the safe and orderly school environment remains. Even though all the factors to one degree or another have changed, the safe and orderly school environment remains prominent in the necessary components of an effective school. In fact, it's so important it moved from number 4 to now number 1. It's a foundational piece. This has long been an approach and a focus that the Palatine schools have adopted. The way that they've done this is through a system called positive behavior interventions and supports. And really what that means is that a school organizes itself to do a series of very important things. And any of you that have children, I have children, it's very difficult to organize yourself to do this on a regular basis. But what they do is they plan to teach the expectations for children very explicitly. So it's clear what you're supposed to do and not do in all the different environments, the bathrooms, the classroom, the hallway, whatnot. They organize themselves to prevent, difficulties from occurring, to recognize and acknowledge positive behavior and its improvement, and to use regular data to adjust the school environment for the changing needs of children. Now, over the years, Palatine has been recognized as a leader in this area. When I was working outside the district, I knew about Palatine and I knew about this approach that it was taking. So it's long been recognized as a leader, and it's been sought out as a model, and also been sought out as a place where others can get information about how to get this started. Now, one of the ways that Palatine gets recognized is by being a member of this larger network called the Midwest PBIS Network. And they oversee Illinois and other districts. And those schools that are involved in PBIS, they will apply for recognition. And this application is a very rigorous process. It involves a review of the systems and how in place they are. It involves a review of the outcomes those systems produce, and it even requires in-person analysis of how those systems look, so there's a comparison between what's reported and what's actually done. Now, Palatine has had a very successful run at this. Last year, we had 5 schools that were recognized as at the platinum level. But this year, we've more than doubled that. So this year, we have 10 schools that are recognized at the platinum level and 9 additional schools that are recognized right below that. Now, to be platinum, it means that you have to have a very high degree of implementation and fidelity, something that is really difficult to organize and maintain, but we've done that. I think Palatine can kind of consider itself the Michael Phelps of PBIS in many ways. Although that might sound comical, it actually, when you put it in a better context, it's actually a very real comparison. So this year, as Mr. Tiemann mentioned, we have 10 of 43 schools in Illinois that were awarded platinum status. Now, when you think about that, that's really quite a significant accomplishment. We represent less than half of 1% of all the schools that actually applied, but we represent 25% of the total schools that achieved the status. Very disproportionate and very clear indication of the high degree of success this has been. The same can be said when we even combine our gold status. There were 130 schools. We have 10 of which, it's really very, very successful. I think the one thing to really remember is that when these schools apply, the fact that Palatine can be such a large representation of the larger districts in Illinois that are recognized as really showing excellence in this area is just an amazing accomplishment. I think, as Dr. Thompson mentioned, one person that has to be acknowledged in part of this is Dr. Laura Swanland. It's been a long-standing responsibility of hers to support this endeavor, and this really reflects the great work that she's done over time. In working with her, we continue to really try and focus on this as an important component of the Palatine approach to effective education. We've formed a larger leadership committee to look at PBIS not just at the school level, but at the district level. How can we expand and continue to promote this? This year alone, we've had 2 larger initiatives to expand this very effective approach to our transportation department. So we've undergone training with our bus drivers so that our schools and busing system are coordinated in their expectations and teaching. So we have teaching staff and bus staff both working together to promote positive behavior on the buses. That's something that Tom Bramley has really helped us out with, and he's done a wonderful job organizing his staff to help out with this endeavor. We've also expanded it to the CARE childcare classrooms in our schools. We've had a training in which CARE staff are able to coordinate with the principal so that their expectations and approaches to behavior are synchronized and overlapping. We're continuing to have meetings between the CARE staff and school staff so that they work together as a coordinated team, not as 2 separate entities within the same walls of a school. So these are really good things that are going on, and I want to thank Dr. Thompson for the opportunity to recognize the schools that have been so successful and the people that have worked so hard to get that success. Thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you for explaining it all to us, so it's-
Thanks. Thank you.
and to everyone here. Thank you.
Well, it's an important part to making sure that kids are successful. We can't take for granted that they know all the procedures and all the expectations that adults have. And so if we explicitly tell them and then teach them how to do them, they can follow them, and then they can focus on learning, and teachers can focus on teaching. So it's really something we're really proud of. Thanks, Tom. Thank you. Continuing my update on the beginning of the school year, I just want to let you know that the Community Relations Committee is still a work in progress. We met, and we've got some direction, and we're trying to hammer out what would be a good community relations program in the district. Jessica and Zubair from the board are on my committee, and we will be meeting shortly to finalize some structures for the school so that we can make sure that we're doing the best job possible, sharing information and getting information from the community, having a 2-way dialogue. And so we're excited about the Community Relations Committee. I just want to give you an update on that, and you should look forward to more information as we meet for our second time in the fall. The last item in my section really is to talk about the resolution for a referendum. Again, the committee did an excellent job. They came up with a plan that I think makes a tremendous amount of sense. It seems to be something that could set the district on a good course, a really positive, beneficial course for the next 20 years. And in order to do that, as you know, we have to go to the voters to ask for them to fund it. Well, it's never something desirable like the board or anybody else wants to ask the taxpayers to increase their real estate taxes, especially after having a reassessment from the Cook County Assessor's Office, a triennial assessment that just took place. It is the right time to do the right thing, and I think this is the right thing, and we will let the voters decide. And so I'm going to ask you later to approve this resolution to put this $130 million question on the ballot so the voters can decide if this is what they want for the community in the future, today and in the future. And I think it's definitely the right thing to do. We continue to talk with the Park District about acquiring land in Northeast Palatine where 22% of our students reside, but we have no school. We transport those kids to 7 elementary schools. They could just walk to school. Their parents could be a part of the school on a much more readily basis because they could be there so close. We think we could meet the kids' needs up there if we had a school up there, and I think it's something that could be very exciting. Aligning the schools, the high schools, all good, full-day kindergarten, there's so many benefits. So that resolution will be an action item coming up later in the agenda. The $130 million, as you know, was determined by using our architect and our construction management firm to make a best guess on what it would cost to build these 2 buildings, to buy the property, develop the sites, and to furnish them. The construction manager did let me know that every year where you delay, that you can anticipate a 4% increase in the cost of construction. So that's why we're asking for the resolution to be on the ballot this November, because the longer we wait, the more it costs the district if the voters choose to do this. We also will have future presentations to the board on how the bonds would be structured and how we'd pay them back and what that would mean to taxpayers. We've got some information now, but I want the board to have more information about what our options are if the voters do allow us to issue bonds, and making it most favorable for our residents to be able to afford these taxes as we go forward. So I think at the September meeting, we'll have Elizabeth Hennessy come in. I gave you some preliminary information about the payoff right now. The one that I'm going to recommend is the one that has the dollar amounts lower early, and then as our other bonds roll off, the amount of money that was being paid for the past bonds stopped being paid, and we increased the payments for the current $130 million bonds. And it helps taxpayers now, and then people that will be here in the future that are going to be using the schools and be a part of the community, they can pay their fair share as well. So, but Elizabeth will come and she'll share that information with you, and you can ask any questions you have at that time. So that's it for my section. Any questions?
In anticipation then of, putting this up for referendum, we're going to be going around you're going to talk to as many people as you possibly can and involve the community as much as you possibly can. So what we know, the community will know as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As you all are aware, after the resolution is passed, we can't expend any tax dollars to try to get people to vote in favor of the referendum. All we can do is we can go out and share what the referendum dollars would do for the community and what our plan would be if they approved them. So I will go out to as many community groups as possible. I think some of my colleagues will take some of the meetings, but we'll make presentations so that everyone has all the information they need to understand what the plan entails and what the question on the ballot means to them.
I just want to thank you and the Facilities Committee for having as much information as you do about the boundaries here for us tonight. For me personally, after speaking with many people, some of them I see in the audience, it was really one of the major concerns for a lot of people, that they have the information about how it's going to affect them before they vote. So I just want to applaud the Facilities Committee and Dr. Thompson, you and your administration for getting that put together for tonight.
Well, thanks for that heads up. It's definitely something we want to do. We want to give people as much information about the plan as possible. Thank you.
And Dr. Hoffman, another thing is, I know that we have a proposed language for the ballot. And we're going to be voting on putting this on the ballot. Look, is there any, I mean, will there be an opportunity, I guess I haven't, obviously, I've seen, just as a voter over the years, how these type of referendums look like, but is that the language that has been kind of approved by attorneys that the district has hired? And I just, because, for instance, the one thing that popped in my head is looking at this language is great, and, I certainly think we should put it on the November ballot. Something in there to describe, and you can't make it that big because it's just on a ballot, but something to describe the purpose of it. It's just a thought that came in my head that if we had something on there that, for capacity, even something as simple as talking about increased capacity, because that's basically the main, if you were going to put it in one word, that's what it is. It's just something to add to it, I think, is just a thought.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate attorneys and what they do for all of us. We really care. They are very good about this. They were very careful about choosing the language, and I think they've been in situations before where they've used language to try to describe, and then later it's come back to be really problematic. And so this is the simplest, cleanest language that we can get. I think in order to share the purpose, it's going to be incumbent upon us to go out and tell people what the purpose is. That I don't think they will be able to learn by reading the question on the ballot. I think we have to go out and give that information. So we'll answer any questions people send with emails. I've already had a number of emails and phone calls. We will give people the information, and I think when they get to the ballot, they'll understand what this question really means.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a couple of questions just sitting here. Do we have estimates, if everything goes as planned, how long it would take for children to be in these schools learning?
We've talked with our architect and our construction manager, and we are hopeful that the fall of 2019 we could get kids in if the voters approved it on November 8th. That would be our goal, and we hold them accountable for that. So they thought we could do it in 3 years.
Okay, thanks.
Did you have another?
Well, the $130 million that we're going to be asking the voters for, when we give them the information that you just said, they'll have the information when they go to the ballot to know what it means. Are there restrictions, and this is for my own education, are there restrictions around how it can be spent?
That's why the wording in the question is very important. There
Okay.
are. And so you have to be explicit in your question about what it's going to be used for. And so that's why we listed the purchase of one site, the site development at both sites.
Mm-hmm.
So if we hadn't put site development in there, we couldn't use the bond money to develop the land and get it ready for construction. So it's
limited to exactly what's here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if by chance we don't use all that money, then we can certainly bake that back to the taxpayers.
Any other questions? Okay, in the next, shortly in the meeting, we're going to have citizens addressing the board. So if anyone is interested, there were green sheets in the front lobby. If you would please fill those out and get those to our board secretary, June Becker. We'll be coming up on that shortly. In the meantime, moving on to reading and acceptance of the minutes. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings of the Board of Education. June 15, 2016, regular Board of Ed meeting. June 22nd, 2016, Board of Ed meeting, Board of Ed and District Leadership Team Retreat, and the June 22nd, 2016, special board meeting as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Eckert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 7, board discussion and reports. Dr. Chapman, Ed Red.
For the board's information, there's a summary of bills that were passed by the legislature. We'll get, if there are any that affect us, we will get it through our recommendations for changing policy. But the good news is that most of the conversation had to do with the budget. So And as Mike indicated earlier, we did get good news. It's just a matter of when those funds are going to be allocated to us. So overall, not a bad session in terms of the impact it has on District 15 this year.
And then just a reminder, Ed Red is available to any board member. You can certainly join Dr. Chapman and go to the.
Yeah, good point. Anybody, and I've tried to attend almost all of them, and Mike does too. So if you see an upcoming meeting you want to go, just give me a call. Because
Great. Okay. Mr. Seifert, District 15 Educational Foundation.
Just a little news, we're gonna, the foundation is gonna lose 2 members at the end of this month, and we're looking for anyone else who would like to volunteer for the district foundation, to contact, I guess would be the school, the district office, and again,
Yeah,
for anyone that's interested in being a trustee on the District 15 Educational Foundation. But we will have 2 members that will be moving on as their trustee position is opened up, and we'll open up for new members that would like to join.
Yeah, and on August 30th, I think they'll be inducting 7 new members as well. So that's, we've got a replacement where they're always open to good quality people.
And if there's any question about the requirements or what you're looking for, they can push you to get in touch with.
They can contact me or Julie, and we'll definitely direct them to people they can contact.
Okay. Next item is the 2016-17 Board of Education Annual Goals. Dr. Thompson.
So these are the summary of the discussions that took place at the board administrative retreat in June. With the help of Meg Schnorr, we kind of summarized these discussions, and I came up with 5 goals. And I'm presenting them to you tonight, and I'm going to ask you to think about them. And we would also like to publish these on the website for the next month to get community input, and then come back at our September meeting and finalize the goals that we're going to work on for the year. So the goals we've got listed right now are just to examine achievement of all student groups and create plans to reduce and eliminate the gaps between those different groups of students. Continue to focus on that, and that's work that is definitely being done, but I think we make it an emphasis and report back to you. I think you'll be pleased with the work that's going on. We want to make sure that all District 15 schools are places where young people are knowledgeable, emotionally and physically healthy, motivated, civically inspired, engaged in the arts, and prepared for work and economic self-sufficiency and ready for the world. And so we'd like to make that the focus for this year, and we'd come back with some specific ways that we would work on making sure that happens, and then report to you at the end of the year how the success of those efforts went. We also would like to enhance the nutritional offerings in the district. We'd like to evaluate the nutritional services offerings to students and identify areas in those offerings that we might be able to enhance, including, and this came up at the board administrative retreat, not only improving some nutritional offerings if possible, but also providing some culturally responsive food for the different ethnic groups and different representations in our community. This one we're already kind of working on, creating a superintendent's community relations committee in order to increase strategic communication initiatives and driving up high-quality, two-way, frequent communication with all stakeholders. And so I think we will continue to work on that, and that will be a goal. The last one was to ensure that the district remains in a fiscally responsible manner while maintaining high-quality educational programs and facilities for students, including ways to reduce the tax burden on real estate taxpayers whenever possible. So I think we'd like to also work on that as much as we can.
So those are going to be published on the website for comment.
And anyone reading them can make comments, and then I'll bring the comments back to the board, and the board can decide on the goals for this current school year in September.
And then those goals will be enhanced further as far as...
Yeah, then we'll put some detail to them.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions? Okay, we're going to move on to citizens addressing the board. We'll now open our meeting for public comment. Please remember that this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Superintendent Thompson will get back to you. Please state your name and identify any group that you represent. Please limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. If someone previously has articulated something with which you agree, please state that you agree rather than reiterating the entire comment. And finally, avoid comments specific to any person, student, or staff member respecting their right to privacy. This is not the forum to comment on personnel issues. And our first speaker would be Melanie Santostefano.
No, sit
Right here.
right here. Be great.
Okay, great. All right, so the words shudder and non-needed are pretty impactful here. It just doesn't sound or feel right or good. My son Charlie is in second grade. We moved to downtown Palatine as he entered kindergarten because of the neighborhood school that we pictured Charlie going to. We saw ourselves walking him there in the morning, him riding his bike when he got a little older. Graham Sanborn is our school, and Charlie is a proud Sanborn Tiger. This proposal to close Sanborn and open up a new elementary school in Northeast Palatine would result in two outcomes. While it would create a neighborhood school for the children in Northeast Palatine, it would also break apart our neighborhood school and our Sanborn school community. And it is a community. We've been there for 3 years, and there's a really strong community there. It's not just Charlie who loses here. I'm not talking just about my life. There's Fiona, Owen, Ethan, Leo, Alex, Brady, Kira, Finn, Max, and countless other kids that I've grown to know, them and their parents. My son has grown to know them and their parents, who've grown to love Sanborn, many of whom have older brothers and sisters who have generations of memories and experiences there too. It's a part of who they all are. And we need to find a better solution. Meanwhile, the Village of Palatine, you may know, is in the middle of their transit-oriented development plan, also known as the TOD plan, which is in part proposing new housing in downtown Palatine. This would bring in new children potentially, and part of a draw in any community, in any areas, for families who either have children or plan to have children to have a neighborhood school. This would be taken away. We need to find a solution that would create this opportunity for those who don't have it while not taking it away from those who already have it. It's about finding a better solution. 22% of our students, as you pointed out, live in Northeast Palatine, who are bused to 7 different schools. That's not optimal, and I'm not proposing that that remains as it is now. Without this proposal, the children in all of our neighborhoods would be shifted around, though. Kids who go to Sanborn would move to Winston. Some Lincoln children would go to the new school. Some of the Paddock student would go to Lincoln, and so on. This shakeup is not good for our children and the neighborhoods they feel established in. It's not just about Sanborn kids again. This proposal, as it is, takes away a sense of community in many of our smaller inner communities within our neighborhoods. With our culture being so separated in so many ways, iPods, laptops, internet, why are we contemplating disrupting already established communities? We need a better solution. I implore you to find a better solution than what we have come up with here, one that creates and maintains communities for all of us. It is my understanding that the deadline to ask this question as a referendum question on the November ballot has already come and gone. This is a question that the community needs time to deal with and digest and understand, and every taxpayer deserves the right to understand, digest, and have a dialogue about changes that affect our children. I'm sure all of you hear about that because you are invested in one way or the other. I urge you to find a better solution for myself and for the parents of District 15 students who are affected by this. Thank you.
Thank you. Barb Kane.
My name is Barb Kane. I'm the parent of 2 students who both attend Sanborn, and I'll just start by saying I agree wholeheartedly. I won't repeat everything Melanie said, just the gist of I moved into a community that was downtown for a reason, and it was proximity to everything, whether that be the train, the entertainment, but also a community school. And I feel like we're losing that sense of community with Sanborn potentially leaving and our kids going outside that downtown area. I also wanted to ask a question, which I realize you may not be able to answer, and that's fine. If we answer it later, that's fine too. But I just wanted clarity on the referendum, and in order for the referendum to go on the ballot, is it with these boundaries already decided as described tonight, or is it possible to amend the boundary suggestions or proposed boundaries and still have the referendum on the ballot in November? I was confused about whether it's all or nothing, or whether there's still the opportunity for some amendments. And then last, I just wanted to talk about, I think Sanborn is easily the most impacted school because it's going to be the one closing. And I'm disappointed that there hasn't been any communication with Sanborn parents prior to now. There have been so many opportunities for ways to reach out to the PTA or address parents in some way, discuss concerns that parents might have, discuss proposed solutions, and none of that has happened. And I understand that that's something you intend to do going forward. But if none of these boundaries can be changed or no commentary can help impact them, I'm not sure how that helps anybody at this point if it goes on the ballot as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the board's benefit, it's really heartwarming that people care so much about their school. I mean, we really want everybody to feel that way. So I feel for the parents that I'm really happy that they have that connection with the school. So the boundaries, we're trying to give people as much information as possible so that they can vote on the question in November 8th. But boundaries are not set in stone. As Dave said earlier, we're still doing some work on some of them. And so we will take feedback from people. And, there is a chance that we could modify some of these things based upon the feedback we get.
Thank you. Betty Bethauer?
My name is Betty Bethauer, and I've lived here in Palatine for 29 years in District 15. So I don't really have an emotional stake in this game anymore because my kids have already grown, but I do have a financial one. And as you mentioned before, we were reassessed. If my house was really worth that much money, I would have gotten rid of it. But instead, I get to give Cook County more taxes. And now we're talking about putting more of a financial burden on me. And to tell you the truth, I'm not willing to do that. So I don't know what to say. The teachers got a raise, and I'm not saying they didn't deserve it, and I'm not saying they did deserve it, but it's going to cost us money. And now you're proposing buildings that are going to cost us money. You have to make a choice. When I go to the store, I have to make a choice. Can I buy A or B? I can't buy both. And I just feel that that's, the taxpayers are going to have to make a choice here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I live in Jane Addams.
Terry Kroberg?
Hello. All right. I, too, am here to express my displeasure about the possible closing of Sanborn School. Closing Sanborn would be devastating for all the families living in the Sanborn area. It seems that the reason for the Sanborn closing would be due to low enrollment once the two schools in the district would open, and also because of the age of the building. Yes, Sanborn is the oldest school in the district, but it still has great use within it. Whether the district updates the building or the property is purchased by the Park District, any renovation, new construction, and/or updating would be done at taxpayer expense. It is not like we are selling that property to a private developer. The very reason that the Park District wants Sanborn land should be the reason that we, the district, want to keep it. It is centrally located in the heart of Palatine and serves the downtown Palatine and surrounding neighborhoods. If Sanborn is gone, I guarantee you that the people in the future will be asking, why isn't there a neighborhood school in downtown Palatine? And why are our kids being bused all over Palatine to go to different schools? I understand that once the new school in the northeast corner of Palatine is in operation, that would pull students out of Sanborn. The extra space could easily be used by other programs within the district, maybe as an early childhood center, house a half-day kindergarten program, because there are still some of us stay-at-home moms who aren't ready to send our 5-year-olds to school all day. My son just started first grade today at Sanborn, and I have a 2-year-old daughter at home. Sanborn School is my future. It is a vital part of downtown Palatine, and it needs to remain open. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Did you feel?
No, I missed that on the way in. I'd like to say something, though, if I could.
Okay.
Would you state your name, please?
My name is Bill Duba. I've been a taxpayer in District 15 since 1965. That's 51 years. I've helped put 4 generations of children through school, and very happy to do so. Now it's my time. I had a 31% increase in my assessed valuation. I appealed it. I got a whopping 4% off. We can't afford it anymore. We can't afford it anymore. We're going to be senior citizens, and I did well in my life, but I'm telling you right now, I am not going to support this, and I'm going to do everything I can to help it get defeated. There's nothing in it. The people that are old like me and have done their job, we're getting screwed. We're getting run out of town. No matter how well we've done in life, we are getting run out of town. I'm lucky. I still have some money. But I'm not nutty enough to stick around here and continue to pay for this. One other question, just a question, please. When the new schools are built, how many more children are going to be in the district than they are right now? Just a guess. I'm not asking for anything concrete.
Bill, I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. I'm sorry I'm a little emotional on this because I just fought a tax bill and I'm continuing to fight it. And if I was just concentrating on Social Security and that's the only thing I had right now, I'd have been out of here a long time ago. But now my nest egg I built up over the year is being, disintegrated. It's being disintegrated by 10-year school contracts. Cook County wants this. Medicare, doctors go up. Dr. Eckberg knows costs going up everywhere. Nothing is coming in for me. 51 years, I'm a veteran. So I had my say. I thank you all very much. I know you guys work hard, and I appreciate everything you do. But now is a time for us old dudes. We paid our share. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to action items.
I turned in a form.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Maybe it was stuck together. Becky, come on up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know that. Sorry, it must have stuck together.
My name is Becky Booth, and I'm a former teacher who supports fair compensation to attract and hold good ones. My husband and I addressed you May 11th to explain our disapproval of the 10-year contract. This is a do-over since there were no microphones. Soon after, at the June meeting, soon after, the board sent a message to the District 15 community. This letter, which only the households of elementary children received, which should have gone to all taxpayers. This letter makes many false accusations about the May 11th public comments we made. Your letter states, and I quote, that there is a small but well-organized group in our community that knows how to get attention. They show up at board meetings not to address us, but to address the media. It doesn't mean they have the unanimous agreement of our community, unquote. I can assure you, we had not attended a board meeting for many years and were not acquainted with the other commentators or seeking media attention. As for unanimous agreement, that's an impossibility. Among the 15 commentators, 2 actually lauded you for the contract. I understand one of those is a teacher's spouse, representing an obvious conflict of interest. In your message here, the other 15 of us are depicted as, quote, creating something ugly. Quote, at Wednesday's board meeting, you saw the worst. There were more personal attacks than substantive ones. A lot of it was unfair. We were accused of being loud and making, quote, egregious attacks, unquote, on the board. Quote, many of the commentators hurled insults at the board, superintendent, and school administrators. We were heckled walking out of the building. Keep listening to this group and you will hear blatant anti-teacher, anti-union sentiment pouring from their mouths. Really? Were you attending the same board meeting I was? I did not hear loud voices or disrespect for teachers May 11th. Watch the video. Any objective viewer will see the fallacy of your account. I heard speaker after speaker cite factual evidence of economic realities in the private sector growth, contrasted with the supersized salaries guaranteed by your contract. I heard very sincere expressions of frustration and anger over this board's failure to operate with transparency and regard for the taxpayer, and your unconscionable failure to represent us in negotiations with the teachers union. Your message said, I quote, "In fact, one commentator suggested teachers could be replaced by computers in the future." Really? To suggest teachers could be replaced by a computer is offensive and displays how little this group values our teachers, etc. The commentator who suggested that educational technology might reduce the number of teachers needed in the future was pointing out the uncertainty of future needs in a changing educational landscape and the absolute folly of binding future boards and taxpayers to a 10-year contract. This is hardly, quote, anti-teacher sentiment pouring from his mouth, as your letter states. With the exception of one speaker, all those opposing the contract were respectful of teachers and their union. These facts are clearly evident in the May 11th video on your website, with public comment beginning 54 minutes in. As for heckling, I observed only one individual who directed a loud request to please represent the taxpayers to a couple of board members as they left the building. The word heckling suggests a much different picture. Most of the comments made by the 12 speakers were in line with those expressed by State Senator Matt Murphy and State Representative Tom Morrison, who sent a letter detailing their reasons for opposing the contract. On May 17th, the Chicago Tribune article stated, quote, "The board's statement did not address any of the criticism of the contract itself. In fact, Tom Morrison states, quote, "It seems the board's comments were meant to divert attention from the real issue of what to do with this contract. It's meant to disparage those who have legitimate concerns about this contract," he said. Since distributing your hasty propaganda to a select District 15 audience, not all taxpayers, you have formed a public relations committee, which I now hear is to be called a community relations committee, and asked for constructive criticism. Here's mine. Inform the entire district committee, District 15 community, with accuracy, not inflammatory and blatantly false rhetoric. Do not distort reality. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry we missed your, that was an accident on my part. I do apologize. Moving forward with action items. Item number 16820, the personnel report. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the August 17, 2016 personnel report as revised, including the following recommendations. Recommendation for discipline, 1-day unpaid suspension for Ernie Baez. Recommendation for discipline, 1-day unpaid suspension for Bernice Brown. Recommendation for discipline, 1-day unpaid suspension for Tracy Sepura. Recommendation for termination, Lydia Main.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Khan.
Aye.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert.
Aye.
Babcock.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Eckberg.
Aye.
Green.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16821, may I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the resolution providing for and requiring the submission of the proposition of issuing 130 million school building bonds to the voters of district at the general election to be held on the 8th day of November 2016 as presented. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert.
Aye.
Babcock.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Eckberg.
Aye.
Gurian.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16-822, the bid award for carpet. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to award the contract for the carpeting bid 17-001 to Central Rug and Flooring, Evanston, Illinois, for a total bid award amount of $16,939.72 as recommended. It was noted that this was only a partial bid due to asbestos abatement and carpet replacement to be included in the summer 2017 life safety projects.
Second.
Discussion?
So we're gonna hold off on the floor.
Yeah, we can't
Until
install,
abatement is complete?
we can't install the floor until the asbestos is abated, and we can't do that until we bid it out and get it done.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Seifert.
Aye.
Babcock.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Eckberg.
Aye.
Gurian.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Morrison. Aye.
Motion carries. Item 16-823, approval of the 2016-17 Board of Education annual goals. Do we want to approve those since we're
No, I make a
going
motion
to?
to publicize the proposed Community Consolidated School District Board of Education annual goals for 2016-17 on the district website for a period of 1 month to allow for public comments.
Second.
Any discussion?
We don't really need to, roll call.
Okay.
We'll just do that.
Okay. Moving on to 16-824, semi-annual review of closed session minutes. May I have the suggested
Well, we
motion?
do have a motion on the table that we have not, whether we need a roll call or not, we have not voted on it. There was a motion made.
Okay. Is
Sorry,
there,
my apologies.
is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, so they are going to be on the website for 30 days for discussion. They'll come back at the September meeting. Could we have a roll call, please?
Babcock.
Aye.
Chapman.
Aye.
Eckberg.
Aye.
Gurian.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 16-824, the semi-annual review of closed session minutes. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve administration's recommendation for the release of the closed session minutes as presented. The following closed session minutes will be approved for release July 23rd, 2015, special meeting, August 24th, 2015, special meeting, November 11th, 2015, special meeting, and December 21st, 2015, special meeting.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Chapman.
Aye.
Eckberg.
Aye.
Gurian.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert.
Aye.
Babcock.
Aye. Motion carries. Does anyone, on item 16-830, the consent calendar, is there anyone that wishes to remove anything from the consent calendar? May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Roll call.
Eckberg.
Aye.
Gurian.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Morrison. Aye. Seifert.
Aye.
Babcock.
Aye.
Chapman.
Correspondence during the last monthly period. On June, or that's 2 months actually, since we skipped the July meeting. On June 8th, 2016, a request was received from Roy McCampbell, LaGrange, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on June 15th. On June 16th, 2016, a request was received from Vicki Wilson, Palatine, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on June 23rd. On June 16th, 2016, a request was received from Scott Hare, Palatine, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on June 23rd. On June 22nd, a request was received from Jane Van Wovelier, Palatine, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on June 27th. On July 7th, the request was received from Brenda Bacala, Illinois Policy Institute, Chicago, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on July 12th. On July 8th, 2016, a request was received from Jake Griffin, Assistant Managing Editor for Watchdog Reporting, Daily Herald, Arlington Heights, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on July 13th. On July 13th, a request was received from Scott Hare, Palatine, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on July 20th. On July 22nd, a request was received from Pat Noonan, Carpenters Local 1185. The response to this request was sent on July 25th. On July 28th, a request received from Catherine Smizer, NBC 5 Chicago, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on July 28th. On August 2nd, a request received from Scott Hare, Palatine, Illinois. The extension letter was sent on August 9th. On August 8th, A request received from Robert Jones, Contractors Adjustment Company, Buffalo Grove, Illinois. The response to this request is sent on August 11th. August 8th, a request received from Sinthu Ramalingam, Policy Associate, One Chance, Illinois. The response to this request is sent on August 11th. We received 2 checks from the municipalities. From the Village of Palatine, we received a check of $6,470.79. And from the City of Rolling Meadows, we received a check of $7,387.
If I could, before we adjourn, just on behalf of the board, thank you to all of the District 15 for doing what you do to get us started and to have another successful start of the school year. So thank you. And with that, a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
First. Roll call.
Green?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Dismissed.